I am not Dr. Fauci. I watch him on TV, and it looks like that we need to plan on a school year where we're going to have to continue to put in place practices we would have never imagined in the past. What I hope you guys will do, and I promise I'm done talking, you guys have such a better sense of what works with students than certainly I do. And then really at many people at the state level, because we're not walking around buildings all day. We don't have these students texting us. You do. We need to hear from you. When you guys uncover a strategy wherever you are in the state, communicating that back up, hey, here's what's working with all kids, guys, that would be a huge asset, and I hope you'll do it. I also hope you will never hesitate, and I've said this when we've been in person, to let us know if something's not working, right? So we have no pride of ownership around tactics that we may have concocted that sound like a great idea in Nashville, but then in your district aren't working. I hope you guys will feel comfortable to communicate up through Deborah, up through Elvin, to Dr. Greg, hey, this isn't working and we need to adjust our strategy. Because I think this year is going to be a year where we're continuing to adjust strategies. Let me end as I began. Thank you guys so much for what you do. I hope you'll never hesitate, if you need to reach out to me. Every statewide goal that we have for higher education is driven by Gear Up. You all have the population of students that really serves as our rudder in many ways. Our job is to work for you. And I know that that's the sense you get from Dr. Greg and Troy, but I want you to hear it from me as well. You guys know you can always find me on Twitter, where I provide both education policy guidance and donut recommendations. So thank you guys for your time, and I'm going to be around throughout the morning just listening and trying to learn. Thank you guys.
Thank you very much, Mike. I appreciate you joining us this morning and all your support and all you do. I don't want to repeat anything that Mike has said, but I do want to just acknowledge that the past couple of months have just been really, really hard. Different. Hard in so many different and unique ways. I think that's one of the things that we've all seen, that some people have had young kids at home while they've also been working. Some people have had to take care of parents during all of this. Some people have experienced layoffs or reduction of hours. And I think for all of us, one of the things that we have experienced is we're in this business because we love spending time with kids, and we haven't been able to do that during this time. The technology we have, being able to do this virtually, is very much better than not being able to do it at all. And it's been great that we had Zooms and WebExes and things like this, as opposed to not having anything or just phone calls we've had in the past. But it's still really hard. We miss the work that we normally get to do. And I know I've heard from so many people that there's a lot of anxiety now as we're looking at the fall semester or looking at the next year, just the unknowns and the difficulties and the challenges that's going to bring, both personally and professionally. So I want to thank you for the work that you all have done and the commitment that you've shown and the passion that you've brought to this. And as Mike said, just an environment that none of us expected, but here we are, and you all are certainly making the most of it and doing all that you absolutely can. All right, I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint and try to share that, and then we'll start doing some introductions. So just quickly, the agenda that we're going to have today, we've already gone through a welcome. We're going to do some introductions for both Gear Up staff and all of the sites as well. Then we're going to talk about some of the goals and the mission of the Tennessee Higher Education Commission, as well as Gear Up Tennessee, and you will easily see the overlap between the two. We'll talk about some of the outcomes, successes that we've had during this past year, that even though it was a very challenging year and a year that was so different than any of us expected when you all developed work plans for this past year. Talk about some of the successes that we've had from the data standpoint, and then also send an email out, I guess about 2 weeks ago now. I want to hear from each of you and your site some of the successes that you had this past year, whether it's an individual student success or if it's a success that based upon an event or a service or something like that that you've had. Last thing it is, one of the things that several of you know who've been a part of Gear Up for quite some time is we spend the kickoff going through the implementation guide, specifically not page for page, but going through a lot of the changes from the implementation guide from this year to last year. So we will do some of that. Today on this session will specifically be sections 1 and 2 of the implementation guide, and then we have another session this afternoon that we'll go through more, and then the final session tomorrow morning. The session this morning and this afternoon is both for project directors and site coordinators. The session for the afternoon is site coordinators, and some project directors wanted to come. If not, what we also invited is people who are in charge of the fiscal responsibilities and that sort of thing with each school system or with each Gear Up site, because we're going to spend about the first 15 to 20 minutes. Doug and I are going to go through some of the fiscal changes or just some of the things that we want to emphasize from the fiscal side, reimbursements and things like that. So we will go ahead and get started. I'm going to pause here for a second and ask Troy, can you see everybody, or do you just see my PowerPoint right now?
So I can toggle so I can see everybody. Yeah. What do you need?
You can. Okay. Well, no, that's what I wanted to make sure. So I want you all to be able to see the PowerPoint, but as people are introducing themselves, I want you to be able to see the people who are introducing themselves as well.
So I believe whoever is speaking, then their picture then becomes the larger picture on the little screen. So you should be good to go.
Perfect. Just so you all know, the list here are just in alphabetical order by last names. So I will just start with Leanne. I'll ask everyone from our staff if you would just tell everyone your name and then how long you've been with THEC or Gear Up, and then what civic roles and responsibilities that you have.
Hey guys, I'm Leanne Body. I've been with THEC and Gear Up for about 9 years, which is crazy. My role with Gear Up is I do a lot of the, you hear from me if you get a data request. I do all of our federal reporting, compliance, and the data that goes back to the sites would come from Shante.
Thank you, Leanne.
Hi, I'm Debbie Brown. I've been with THEC and Gear Up for 8 years now. I'm the regional coordinator for West Tennessee, and I'm responsible for overseeing and helping schools and site coordinators manage college access and create opportunities for our students.
Hi, my name is Elvin Brown, and I am the site coordinator for East Tennessee. I am the counterpart to Debbie, and I've been here for about a year and probably 4 months, but it seems like about 8 years to me too also. But we handle pretty much the same responsibilities of the sites that we actually are governing.
Hi everyone, I'm Shante Coleman. I am the program analyst for Gear Up. I have been with THEC for almost a year. I'll be here in September. I'm responsible for all the emails, but I send you your reports, those FAFSA and Tennessee Promise reports, and also some student level data.
Dwayne, is Doug on, or should I go ahead?
Let me check real quick. If he doesn't say anything, he is not, but I thought he was.
Okay, well then I'll go ahead and go through. So Troy Grant, I have been with THEC since 2008. I was hired on at THEC working as a counselor outreach specialist for the very first Gear Up grant. And so since then, I now oversee the College Access and Success Division. And let me say this too, and I loved scrolling through all of the pictures of all of you. Some of you are new to this work. Some of you have been with us for some time. Everything that THEC does relative to college access and success, ground zero for that work is the Gear Up project. The very first Gear Up project that was awarded in the middle of the 2000s in 9 rural school districts across the state really was the first time that THEC had ever done programmatic work. And so it really is the bedrock upon which we've built a lot of the things that we do statewide. I oversee the division that includes Gear Up, Advise Tennessee, and also our statewide services. And one last thing I'll say, Dwayne, and then I'll stop talking, because Rosie's not here, so I'm going to take her time too. Many of you who have been around for know that 5 years ago, my wife and I, Christy, had our first kiddo, Harper. She is going to kindergarten this year. And so I think I have a different perspective of what this year is going to look like as having a kiddo who is then going to be entering into this very unusual, where I'm a little bit glad that Harper is our oldest because I don't know that we completely understand how all things are going to be different because it's also very new to us. But the work that you all are going to be doing this year is going to be so much more important than it ever has before. The equity gaps that we're going to see across the state and across the country during this time are going to be huge. And I think that the work that you're going to be doing with 10th graders, the work that you're going to be doing with seniors, is just going to be very vital. And we, you know, Dwayne and I talked a lot about this. When you look at your funding and when you look at your program this year, use this funding to drive student improvement in ways that you could never have envisioned to be a possibility. If we are in the same place this year as we were in March of last year, then we've missed the boat. And there's a ton of opportunity there. And we want to do whatever we can from a THEC perspective and from a division perspective to support you in that work. So we're excited about partnering with you. I'd also say, also remember that you are the cream of the crop. You went through a process that was competitive. You are the folks who displayed the enthusiasm and kind of go-get-itness to do this work, and that's something to be proud of, and it's something that really makes you well-equipped to influence and to impact students really positively. So we're excited to be partnering with you. And I'll go ahead and also introduce Rosie. Rosie is the administrative assistant that joined our team the last year. Because of the odd circumstances we all find ourselves in, you probably haven't gotten to meet her face-to-face quite yet, but we will claim to the promise that eventually you will, that we'll be able to be face-to-face at some point. But Rosie has been with THEC for a very long time, and we're thrilled that she is on our team. So anything that you would have gone to Melinda for, please reach out to Rosie, and she'll make sure that you get to the right person on our team.
Thank you, Troy. You can take up as much time anytime you want. I will go back and probably Doug is the person on here who doesn't need any introduction. I thought he was going to be on here, but he may have been tied up with some other THEC activities or something like that. Doug is our fiscal manager for Gear Up, so he handles all the reimbursement requests. That's why most people are very well aware of Doug. He also does the site reviews and things like that. So everything on the fiscal perspective he does. He will be on the presentation with us in the morning. We're going to take about the first 15 to 20 minutes in the morning and go through the implementation guide section on fiscal responsibilities and match. With that, I'll turn it over to Suzette.
Hey there, I'm Suzette Telly, and I've been with THEC right at 3 years now. So for Gear Up specifically, I do several things. So I manage Signalvine, I manage some more in all of our newsletters. You have to do your T-shirt approvals for me or through me. This year I'll be working with Kevin on the Path to College events and also the Next Guide. So if you have questions on those, please feel free to reach out to me. And I didn't see Kevin on our list, Dwayne.
You're right. I saved you for last. So Kevin, you can introduce yourself as well, and I apologize you're not on my list.
That's okay. Thank you guys for joining. I'm Kevin Edwards, and like many of you, my wife is a full-time worker, and we have 3 children, all under the age of 8. So it's crazy. It is hard to get much stuff done, and you guys being in schools accountable to multiple hundreds of children, of students, is quite an intense endeavor. So thank you guys for the work that you're doing and that you will do this academic school year. Suzette and I are trying to be the programmatic support for you in terms of resources. So, hey, I don't have time to build this task or this worksheet, this lesson plan. Please reach out to Suzette or myself, and we'd love to help and support you in that work. So College for Tennessee is kind of my baby that we're really excited about moving forward and enhancing and improving, and we'll keep you up to date with that. But thanks for having me.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank all of you for your support of our Gear Up and of our Gear Up sites. What I would like to do next is introduce our Gear Up sites. We haven't had a lot of changes, but we've had a few. And what I've done is just listed these in alphabetical order, so I will let you all go from each one. If everyone who's present from the site could, starting with Anderson County, could introduce themselves, you'll have to unmute yourself, introduce who you are, and then if you would mute yourself back. So just tell them who you are, what you do in the district, as well as, again, how long you've been with Gear Up. I would appreciate that. Again, we'll just start with Anderson County.
Hey, Dwayne. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. My name is Eric Snyder. I'm Director of Secondary in Anderson County and Project Director, and just happy to be here.
Good morning. I'm Hoppy, and I'm from Anderson County, and I work at Clinton High School. I'm the site coordinator.
Thank you both. Bradley County?
Hey, I'm Melissa Presswood, the site coordinator for Bradley County. I'm at Bradley Central High School.
I'm Hattie, and I'm with Bradley County as one of the co-project directors, more part-time anymore. And with me today is?
I'm Becca Bernick, and I'm the grant supervisor for Bradley County Schools, and I've been around for almost 2 years.
Oh, I've been around for 9 years. Sorry.
Hey, I'm Lori Wickham, and I work with Bradley County as a site coordinator part-time, and this will be my 3rd year working with Gear Up.
Thank you, Lori. Campbell County.
Hi, I'm Monica Bay. Can you see me?
I saw you and then you went away.
How's that? Better.
I see you now.
Okay, I've got a delay on my end. I'm Monica Bain, and I am the Gear Up coordinator for Campbell County Schools. I work at primarily Campbell County High School and also Jellicoe High School. I've been with Gear Up for 5 years, and we have a new person on board that will be serving our students in a part-time capacity at Jellicoe. And Esther, if you'll come on and introduce yourself.
I've unmuted her, so she should be able to speak now.
I'm having some problems on my end. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm Esther Loudon, on August the 3rd, and part-time, and excited to be at Jellicoe to help the students there.
Welcome.
Monica, do you have anyone else with you? Okay, let's go on to Fayette County.
Hello, I am Tara Brotnack, the site coordinator for Fayette County, working at Fayette Ware High School, the only high school in the county, and this is my 2nd year with Gear Up. And my director, Tawanda Macklin Brown, is on as well. Maybe she had to step away, I'm not sure.
Let me check real quick and make sure that she's unmuted. I noticed a few people joined us after I unmuted everyone, so then they were still muted. Okay, I've unmuted her now, so let's see if that works. Tawanda,
good morning. Yes,
right.
I can now. I couldn't unmute. Good morning. I'm Tawanda Macklin Brown. Okay.
Because I've had a couple people have told me that. I apologize for stepping in. If there's someone else who you're muted and you cannot unmute yourself, your chat will still work. So if you let me know that you're muted, then I will go in and unmute you. Go ahead, Tawanda. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Good morning. I'm Tawanda Macklin Brown. I serve as the project director for Gear Up for Fayette County, Fayette Ware Comprehensive High School, and I've worked with the Gear Up program for 3 years now.
Thank you, Tawanda.
You're welcome.
All right, give me just a second. I'm unmuting a couple of people. I think I'm sharing my screen so you all can see people as I'm unmuting them too. So. All right, hopefully that worked for Carmen and Vanessa. And go to Haywood County. And Jackie is muted. All fix that. And this is just technology. I know you've all experienced the same thing over the last couple of months, so we will get through it together. We should be able to hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
Okay, hi everybody. I'm Jackie Whitten. I'm the Gear Up Site Coordinator for Haywood County Schools. We are in our second grant. I began with the Gear Up program in 2013, and it just gets better every year, even though this year is challenging. And I've really enjoyed being the site coordinator and working with all of our students and parents. We do have Ms. Gina Rawson on today too. She is our Gear Up project director here at and federal director here in Haywood County Schools.
Thank you, Jackie. Henry County.
Good morning. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Casey Matterson, and I am the Gear Up Site Coordinator at Henry County High School in Paris, Tennessee, West Tennessee, and I will be starting my third year with Gear Up this year, and we have one high school here in Paris, so we're excited for the upcoming school year, even considering the circumstances. And I actually have our project director, Dr. Webb. She's on here as well, so I'll let her introduce herself.
I wonder if she's muted.
Yes, it looks like she's muted.
All right. Dr. Webb, can you hear me? I unmuted you, but you just muted yourself back.
Okay.
That works. Yes.
Okay. So nothing really to add. Casey does a great job with our students. We were an advised TN school prior to Gear Up, and so that was a neat transition through the years. A benefit this year is Casey will have really one school to work with. In the past, we have a ninth grade standalone school, and so that she worked with both that group plus us last year, and so she'll be able to be here full time this year, so that will be a benefit for sure.
Thank you, Dr. Webb. Jackson County.
Hey, my name is Gary Flynn. I'm the site coordinator at Jackson County High School. I started last fall. I'm looking back to getting to some sense of normalcy, I sure hope. On the call today is also my principal and the project director, Jason Hardy, and I'll let him say something now. He's at school, I think. He may have something going on. He messed up away from his computer.
I was just about to say, I saw his name on here before, but I don't now.
Yeah, he may have to step out. He was at school on the call earlier.
Do you want to make his introduction then?
Yeah, Jason Hardy is our project director. He's the principal of Jackson County High School. Like some of the others said, that is the only high school in Jackson County. We're pretty remote and small. And I think he, like myself, is looking back to getting to something that looks like normal.
Thank you, Gary. Johnson County.
I'm Brittany Evans, and I'm the site coordinator for Johnson County. And I've been with Gear Up for 6 years. And then Dr. Stephen Long is the project director, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Stephen Long. I am the project director for Johnson County. This is, I think, the beginning of my 7th year as the project director. We were fortunate enough to be a Gear Up 2.0 site prior to this, and a Gear Up 1.0 site prior to that. So we're very happy to have been part of this for a good long while. So.
Thank you, Dr. Long. Fayetteville, Lincoln County.
My name is Mandy Pitt. I am the site coordinator at High School.
for Fayetteville City Schools and going on my third year as site coordinator here. And we also got Ms. Regina, who is our project director. I'll let her introduce herself.
I am Regina Dotson, and I am the project director for Fayetteville City Schools. This is our third year. We were very excited to get the grant, and we feel like we're able to make a big impact with the program. So we're very excited to be a part of it again, even though we know it's going to look a little different than normal.
Thank you both very much. County, I think I've had both of you unmuted now.
Good morning. I'm Carrie Fitch. I'm the Gear Up Site Coordinator at Meigs County, and like other people said, we're pretty rural and we only have one high school here, so I work at Meigs County High School. I've been with Gear Up for 2 years now, and my project director is also on here, Ms. Carmen Shope.
Hello, I'm Carmen Shope, and I am the project director for Meigs County Schools. I'm excited to work with Carrie. She does a fabulous job with our kids and our parents to have them ready for college and careers. And this summer I have been in our war room trying to plan what school looks like when we go back. In fact, I'm at 2 meetings at one time right now with our principals. So forgive me if my picture looks kind of crazy sometimes. I'm going back and forth.
Thank you very much. Watts Creek High School in Metro Nashville.
Dwayne, I think I'll go ahead and start. Can you guys hear me?
I can. I just unmuted Shamika too. Go ahead, JP.
Oh, okay. I'm JP Gray. I'm the co-project director on the Gear Up Tennessee 3.0 grant. I was with the original Gear Up, or not the original, but the Gear Up Tennessee 2.0 grant in 2013. The other co-project director on this grant is the principal, Dr. Mells, who could not be here today. But I also oversee the Gear Up Nashville Partnership Grant.
And I'm Shamika Bailey, and I have one of the best project directors ever. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
And I have been with Gear Up for about 4 or 5 years. I was trying to go through my email to see when I actually started because it seems like 70 years. But I have been with Gear Up for about 4 or 5 years, and I enjoy the work that I do. I enjoy working with the kids, and I'm excited about what's to come in this new space that we're in.
Thank you both very much. Overton County, Livingston Academy.
Hello, my name is Vanessa Ferris. I work at Livingston Academy, and we are, like a lot of places, the only high school in the county. I am not sure that Miss Teresa is still on. She was on initially. Teresa, are you on? We are in different locations today. She will be in.
I see her and I just unmuted her. So.
Okay, Teresa, are you there? She will be in and out.
Okay.
Okay, are you there, Teresa?
No.
Okay. I suspect that she's not actually there. She has a federal meeting that is starting at this moment, so she is going to be in and out. Miss Teresa Johnson is our project director, and she works out of central office, and she is like our federal person and our CTE person, so she has a whole lot going on today, but we'll be in and out and we will catch up.
Thank you, Vanessa. Polk County, I think at this point I've unmuted all 4 of you at some point, so I'll let you all start.
Awesome. Good morning, everybody. I'm Jason Bell. I'm co-project director here in Polk County. We've got 2 high schools. We are on Gear Up 3.0, so this is the 3rd year that we're starting up. And it's kind of a blur now with everything that's going on. As you guys know, in other districts, we have a lot of planning kind of day. We're building the plans, kind of, so to speak, in so many places. But happy to be here. I'll do my best to be as engaged as possible, but I got other things going on. I might have to go in and out. So I'll pass it over to the other project director, Dr. Ryan Goodman.
Ryan Goodman, co-project director, also kind of oversee CT and human resources in the district. But just excited to be here. Like a few others have said, there's actually Teaching Institute this week as well, so I'm kind of moving in between both of those right now. But I'm happy to be here, and I'll send it off to Mika now.
Hello, I'm Leah Carter, and this is my grant in Polk County. Year total, and five years in college. But I keep working on the program, and my favorite that I've had.
We almost 1:30.
Heading into year 3, and we're ready to take on all challenges.
Home.
I'm going to ask Britt, co-worker in the world, Danielle.
Hi, I'm McCleary. I'm getting a lot of feedback from everybody, so I'm going to go quick. I'm the site coordinator at Copper Basin High School, and I've been with you for a little over a year, and it's great work, and I enjoy it so much.
Yeah, what? I'm sorry.
Hold on just 1 second. Let me see if I can figure this too.
First time calling, please. U.S. Microsoft tablet. No, it's a Windows Microsoft tablet. Yes. M.
Okay, I think that got it. All right, where were we? Danielle?
I can go again. I talked, but I'm not sure anybody was able to.
A lot of it's right, exactly. Thank you.
I'm Danielle McCleary. I'm the site coordinator at Copper Basin High School in Polk County. I've been with Gear Up a little over a year, and I work with a great team, Dr. Bell, Dr. Goodman, and Mikalea at Polk County High School. So shout out to them because I think it was hard to hear all of us. But yeah, it's been great, and yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you, Danielle. Robertson County. And Rebecca, it may be possible, it may be that I muted you a second ago, so you can't unmute yourself. Is that right? Okay, let me fix that. How about now, Rebecca?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, perfect. So I'm Rebecca Robertson. I'm the site coordinator for Robertson County, and I work at Springfield High School. I don't think my project director is on right now. She is like everybody else at the central office trying to figure out how to keep all the balls in the air. I've been with Gear Up since the 2.0 grant started, and I, at this point, can't imagine doing anything else. So looking forward to a strange but good year.
Thank you, Rebecca. And Shelby County.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. My name is Sophia Jones-Taylor, and I am the site coordinator for Shelby County, and currently I am with Kingsbury High School, home of the Falcons. I have been with Gear Up for 3 years now, and I thoroughly enjoy it. My project director is Mr. Shannar Miller, and he is here today.
Good morning, everyone. I am the project director at Kingsbury High School in Shelby County School District, and I have been the project director for 2 years.
Thank you all very much. Sorry, normally we do that in person. It's a lot easier just to kind of point at people and tables. So I apologize for the muting and unmuting, but we got through that, and it's great to have you all here. So we have a total of 15 counties that we serve in Gear Up 3.0 and 17 high schools. The next thing I would like to do, and I think at this point, I'll pause for a second. I think at this point, everyone is controlling their own mute and unmute. If that's not the case, again, just send something in chat and I'll know. But if you would mute your own phones, but if you want to comment, if you have a question, please, please, please add that. And then we'll have another set time where people are going to be addressing kind of student successes, and you'll need to unmute yourself to do that. Before I move on to the next section, Kevin, is there anything that I've missed as far as Q&A or anything like right now on the chat line?
No, Carmen had raised her hand, but that may have been she needed help muting or unmuting herself. But no, everyone is good, but please feel free to chat if you guys have other questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Kevin. So I know the next couple of slides that I'm going to cover, some of you all have seen this 10,000 times, but I still think it's important that each time we go over this, and it's about why we're here and what we do, what's our goal and our mission and our focus. So the Tennessee Higher Education Commission, this one is not the focus of Gear Up, but Tennessee Higher Education Commission. And then in the next slide, you'll see Gear Up's mission, and I think you'll see quite the overlap between them and why it's so important that the state of Tennessee has a Gear Up grant. The Tennessee Higher Education Commission is relentlessly focused on increasing the number of Tennesseans with a post-secondary credential. We pursue this goal by innovating for student access and success, creating a policy environment conducive to increased degree attainment, and protecting students and consumers. Again, this is the mission statement for the Tennessee Higher Education Commission. But if you think about the work that each of you do with Gear Up and that you do in your high schools, you will see how this is embedded into everything that we do. And as both Mike and Troy discussed, why Gear Up is so important to the state of Tennessee and the success that we've had. The mission of Gear Up Tennessee aims to expand the college-going culture in Tennessee. By using the empowerment model that recognizes the assets and needs of local communities, Gear Up Tennessee looks to shift the state's educational culture. We aim to develop long-term, successful partnerships to support students in reaching college and providing them with the resources to succeed in college. One of the things that Troy mentioned before is that the work that you all do on the local level, the site coordinators and project directors and all our Gear Up Tennessee high schools, is where it actually happens. We create a lot of the resources at the state level, and we'll talk about some of the resources later, but where you all move the needle, where we increase our college-going rates and our FAFSA rates, and where we have all the events and the meetings and services and things like that, where we create a college-going culture that we hope is going to be sustainable after this grant. All of that happens at the local level, and I hope you have heard and will continue to hear us say how much we appreciate the work that you all do. Gear Up Tennessee goals are pretty specific: to increase the academic performance and preparation for post-secondary education for our students, increase high school graduation rates and college-going rates, and then last, increase the knowledge that our students and our families have of post-secondary options, preparations, and financing. A couple of stats that I wanted to share from this past year. In 1920, 95% of our seniors completed a Tennessee Promise application. I hope as you hear that, you realize what a big deal that is. Along with the second part of this, that 90.2% of our Tennessee Promise students that are Gear Up completed a FAFSA. As you look at FAFSA rates across the rest of the states in the United States, you will see how significant a 90.2% is. That there's many states that are in the 40s and 50s and 60% range, and 90.2% of our Gear Up students that completed a Tennessee Promise completed a FAFSA. We recognize that that's because of all the hard work that you do at the local level. You know that at the state we focus on FAFSAs a lot, but it only happens because of the work that you all do. That is day in and day out, meeting with those students that we know from the very beginning. They know they're going to complete their FAFSA, and they have great support of parents, to students that are all the way at the other end of the spectrum, that they're only going to college, they're only completing their FAFSA because you spent an enormous amount of time working with that student family and getting them to that place in their life. So last year, our students received, our Gear Up students received over 50 hours total of Gear Up services. And we all know that, as I say 50 hours, number one, that's a large number. But number two, we also know that you do so much work that never gets reported in Compass. So this is 50 hours that have been reported and submitted into Compass. As I've had conversations with so many of you over the time, that there's a lot of work that you do, whether it's student coming into your classrooms or whether it's as you're walking the halls, a lot of phone calls this last year or Zoom meetings or things like that with students, that it doesn't get reported. So that's huge. One of the things, and I don't want to go off into some things that we're going to talk about later in this session and the other sessions, is how we're going to maintain and increase this hours. I mean, all of you have talked about when you introduced yourselves number one, how happy you are to be a part of Gear Up Tennessee and how this has changed your life in so many ways and is so significant. The other theme I saw is everybody's looking forward to getting back to school, and then the unknown of how difficult and challenging this next year is going to be. So I think this slide right here reflects how are we going to continue having 50, 60, 70,000 hours next year in environments that sometimes we're going to have students online, or they're going to be online at times and things like that. And I think the next slide addresses that. The next slide is just amazing. It's about Signalvine, which fortunately we started with Signalvine texting several years ago. And like all things, it started off slow. We figured it out, our students figured it out, and that sort of thing. But as you see here, in this past year, 259,000 text messages were sent. This is, as you know, these didn't go out to our cohort students. So 259,000 text messages that went out to our Gear Up seniors last year across these 17 high schools. That's a lot of text messages you all sent. As you know, some of these are text messages that go out from the state level. Suzette, I think you could probably tell us it's like 6 or 7 of them, messages that went to all of our seniors. But most of these were messages that you all sent individually from each site coordinator for the schools. And then 12,430 messages from our students that they've sent back to individual site coordinators asking for help, asking for assistance. And I know that Suzette has a session that she's going to talk about Signalvine tomorrow, but we know how important Signalvine is going to be this next year, that we're getting in touch with our students when they're not in school. A few more stats. So in the 1920 academic year, 87% of our cohort students received some sort of a counseling advising services. Again, we know that we have a lot of services that go in that actually occur with students, but don't get put into Compass for so many different reasons. But 87% of our students that receive counseling from us, from Gear Up, because of our required services, because of the time that you invested with our students. And this is just counting at one time. So we also know the truth is that many of these students, you didn't just have one counseling or advising time with them, but you had multiple times, whether it was monthly or quarterly or many times throughout the year that they received these services. 55.1% of our 2018-19 seniors in Gear Up 3.0 high schools enrolled in college. That's huge. That's significant. That's taken a lot of work. But at the same time, this is the metric that we want to continue to move each year of this grant as we end up with the cohort group, those students that you've worked with every year, you built a relationship with. Again, a great number, shows a lot of work. This is what we're absolutely proud of, but it's something that we can do better at, and we will. One of the ways that we're going to do this, as Troy talked about, is starting to target those students and figuring out who are those students that we're not serving well, the ones that are not going to college. What's that group of probably 10 to 15% of our students that they need a different type of services than what we're providing, or they need additional services other than what we're providing. And we're going to start focusing on those and some of those gaps and see how we can move that needle even further. The next thing I would like to do, and I sent an email about this a couple of weeks ago, so the data that I just shared is really important. And honestly, as most of you know, and Leanne could definitely attest, the Department of Education, the U.S. Department of Education has got to the place that a lot of the things that we provide to them is data. It's about numbers. It's about reporting. But we also know that what's so important about the work that we do is the individual stories. It's about the students that we've spent so much time with that we know that we've changed their lives. It's about some of the activities and services that we've done that's made such an impact in our schools. And I'll be honest with you, so one of the reasons I wanted to do this, the student success stories part, is I wanted you all to hear from other site coordinators and other sites about some of the individuals and lives that they've changed, because that's what moves so many of us to do that work. But honestly, it's also because I want our TX staff, those who are further removed from the schools, a lot of times all we get is that data. You all have the position where you meet with students on a regular basis, at least before we've been out for a couple of months, that you get to that experience and that overwhelming sense of pride and accomplishment when you have that students that you've worked with for so long and you finally move the needle with them, that they completed a FAFSA, or they completed a Tennessee Promise app, or they decided they're going to college or where they're going to college. And a lot of times our staff at TX, they're not in the classrooms, they're not in the schools, and they don't see that. They don't hear those stories. So I think it's so important that everyone is aware of the time that you invest, of why it matters so much. So first, let me just say that I just kind of the list that I had before of sites that were just in alphabetical order, I just moved them around randomly here. So I would just like to start with Overton County. You all can decide if you want it to be a site coordinator or a project director. You probably already decided that. Again, you'll need to unmute yourself and then mute yourself back after you would go. But I would like to ask you just to take 2 or 3 or 4 minutes and talk about either that student this past year that you've served, that you know that because of things that you and Gear Up did that just made a significant difference in their life, or if you wanted to talk about a service or activity that you did that you just feel like it went really well and it changed the trajectory of some of those students. So I will just let you all kind of go through the list, starting with Overton County.
Okay. One of the services that I think we do a pretty good job at is our whole FAFSA push. From October 1st on, really from September, we start a lot of PR with it. We have a large number of parents, and maybe we're teaching them to be lazy, I don't know, but they sure do count on us. They come in anytime we have the doors open and have help. And it's certainly not just something I do. We have a team that involves, and I think this is part of why the parents like it. It helps them get connected with our TCAT, Tennessee Tech, and Ball State, because their financial aid officers are there helping do the FAFSAs almost every time that I'm helping do FAFSA. So it really is a team approach. And then TSEC usually comes in once, but we're able to free them up for other places because we do have good help from our local colleges. Through that, one of the cases, whenever we get personal, one of the cases that I'm most proud of this year, a young man that will be a first-generation college student. His mom actually came in to get help with the FAFSA, and Tennessee Tech has helped her do it, even though he wasn't going to Tech. He's ended up going to Sewanee with their version of the pledge program where they're paying his tuition and all that. But she really wanted her child to do better. They live in a little trailer park not far from the school, and she bonded to the point that whenever COVID hit and she didn't have access to internet at home for him to complete his dual enrollment classes, she felt comfortable picking up the phone and calling me and just explaining that she was very worried. Here we have a kid with a 4.25 grade point average, a 29 ACT, but he's going to flunk dual enrollment because he didn't have computers. And I could sense that that's swallowing a little bit of pride to say, hey, I can't do this, but we developed that relationship so we could do that. And that was meaningful. I think sometimes having that one kid that you know that you did it is even more important than the big group. But we really do try to get to know our parents as we have them come in and form those connections. So that's just one of the things I'm most proud of.
Thank you for that.
For Johnson County, in the fall, we have a 2-day workshop where we do senior checks to make sure all the students are set for graduation. We do Tennessee Promise applications and then tell them about financial aid and expectations and deadlines for senior year. And this year, we had a student who throughout all the fall semester kept saying he wasn't going to go to college. His father has a local small manufacturing company, and he kept saying he was going to work for his father. And then randomly, before school let out, say January, February, he came and said that he changed his mind, that he wants to go to Northeast State and go for criminal justice, and did his FAFSA and is ready to go for the fall. So that was a good accomplishment for Johnson County to change one of the students' minds, especially since he is a first-generation student, because neither his mother or father attended school.
Thank you. Monica?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Really and truly, I've had several students this year that, because we did sort of strongly encourage, almost force them to do a FAFSA, I have had several this summer that have actually come back and said, hey, is it too late for me to go to TCAT? Is it too late for me to go to Rome State? I've changed my mind because at the time that we were released back in March, they had no intentions of going anywhere or doing anything. And I really want to give out a big shout out to Signal Vine. When we first started using Signal Vine several years ago, I was not a huge fan, but I'm so glad that I kind of dug in and used the program because it has been the only way that I would have been able to be in touch with so many of my seniors this year, not only myself, but the senior counselor, anything at schools, senior supplies, graduation. We've used Signal Vine to contact our students for everything this year, so much so that myself personally, I've decided to contract with them for my cohort group for this upcoming year because I feel like it was such an important tool to communicate and to get those students, you know, interested, and the ones that changed their minds about going on to school this fall, we were able to communicate.
Becca?
So I think I'm going to go with a specific child story because I like the personal relationships. I have a student that was a senior this year, and throughout this whole year, his mom's been battling cancer. So a lot of times she's unavailable, not feeling up to it. So he has just kind of gotten to be pretty close to me and involved with what we're doing. And so we did all of our work through March, and then he contacted me through Signal Vine, and then he managed to, he had like a baseball connection with my son, so he got my personal cell phone number, and he just texts me probably once a week and sends me a screenshot of something, a question about college, and I really know because of his circumstances, he just probably would not have been able to go to college without having that Gear Up piece there to be able to reach out and kind of walk him step by step through it. So he's one of my stories that I'm super proud of this year, is feeling like I've kind of carried him through the process.
Thank you. Haywood County. Jackie?
Now?
I can hear you now. I thought you would be able to unmute yourself, but I've unmuted you.
Yes. One of the things I guess that I'm the most proud of for this past year is Vicki DeBerry, the counselor, and I worked very, very hard to get our students signed up for FAFSA. One of the things we did is we kept a master list, and we called them in alphabetically, and we set appointments with them, you know, during the school day. Most of our work with our FAFSA students was done during the school day, and they could bring in their parents or set up a separate time. And we worked really hard, really pushed it, and I was quite pleased with our percentage. I think we had like 96% who were eligible and signed up. So I was happy with that.
Thank you, Jackie. Carrie?
I'm going to share just a personal story of one of my students. I had one student that I actually had her in class a couple of years ago when I was still in the classroom, and she's a very, very hard worker, but this year her mom showed up for our FAFSA day. It is a single parent home, and the mom works and takes care of not only her kids, but also her mother, who's also sick and lives in the home with them, and her mom's a nurse at a nursing home. But the girl that I worked with, she is the first one in her family to go to college, cousins, everything. So she shared with me how she just has this goal, and her family's always encouraged her to go to college. So she was sick for verification, and it became a kind of nightmarish situation, especially with the COVID and not being able to have a lot of communication. So I never share my personal number, but I gave my personal number to this one, and we had several conversations, me and her and mom, and we called the school. She got a full ride to a local four-year university, and I'm just very proud of her. I think she's really going to make it. She's worked really hard, and I was just happy that I could help her and that she stayed really goal-driven during this time, because she also works to help support her mom and her family and her grandmother and everybody that's living in this house also. So I just think Europe definitely gave her that support that I honestly think she may have just fell by the wayside had she not had some form of support. And I'm just glad that I could be here for her and give her that support during this time.
Thank you, Carrie. And I don't know if it's my connection, your connection, or Jackie's connection. So I could hear you just fine, Carrie, but I can't see you. So I don't know where that's at. We'll see if that changes as Gary talks.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. As Gary mentioned there, I want to bring this up. Those numbers that you mentioned earlier about the text message, I'm sure they're much higher than that. I don't know what everybody's relationship is with their students, but if your cell phone number gets out there to some of those seniors, they soon all have it. And I do a lot of communicating. I did this last year just with my personal line and getting questions all the time, and it's actually been a good thing. It's been very useful. My story, though, that you wanted us to tell revolves around a girl I had when I started the job in the fall. I started kind of late. This girl was not in school. She was actually having a kid. And I knew the family real well. They're kind of poor, and never let anybody go to college. And anyway, I contacted her pretty soon after I took Nancy's place, and she wasn't sure she was going to come back to school. She was just going to go to homebound. And anyway, I kind of talked her in, me and the guidance counselor kind of talked her into coming back to school after a certain length of time, and she came back to school, and she graduated, and she's one of those kids that was borderline graduating, and she was smart. She just didn't have her head in the right place, but it seemed like she had the kid that got a lot better. And like Carrie said too, I had her in class the year before, so I knew she was fairly intelligent, and I was like, you know, you ought to go to college. And she actually had done some of the prep work before she had her kid to go to college, but she didn't. She was just going to be tickled to graduate high school. But during the summer, she's had a change of heart, and again, I'm glad she had my cell phone number, and I've actually worked with her this summer more than any other former student, and I'm proud to say that about 2 weeks ago, she's going to be starting Ball State this fall. So it's just one of those things that you're like, you know, if that girl can do it, anybody can do it, and she's a good kid and tough background and tough situation, but I think she's going to tough it out and be very successful.
Thank you, Gary. Melissa or Lori?
Okay, so I wanted to share a personal story. This is our second Gear Up grant. We were part of Gear Up 2.0, and back in July last year, when we had our senior orientation, during the break for lunch, a student came up, and he was a student that had graduated during our 2.0 grant, and he brought his brother with him, who was a current senior last year, and he was like, you know, you really helped me when I was in school. I just wanted to make sure that you knew who my brother was and that you would help him like you helped me. And it was just kind of neat to get to, you know, work with his younger brother and, you know, just to know, because I didn't know I had that kind of impact on his life, but for him to come back years later and say, you know, you really helped me. I want you to do the same thing for my younger brother. That was kind of cool. And I was able to, you know, keep in touch with his younger brother during the school being out during the spring semester, and he's going to be starting at TCAT this fall. So it's cool.
Thank you, Melissa. Laquita?
So I think my story is similar to many other of the site coordinators. One thing I am proud about is the 96% that we did as far as for our team. We really did a good job at that. And the students were reluctant in the beginning to, you know, complete it because it is a little tedious. However, we got that completed. A success story, I have several. However, I have one particularly. He is just one bright student. He used a lot to his family, and that was exactly what he wanted to do when he graduated. He was just going to work in the store with his family. However, after talking with him, once he went into COVID mode, he wanted to go back to working with the family. He just didn't see the importance of going to college at that given point of time. Plus, he was also taking some online classes, and he was worried about completing those as well. However, once we got past completing the online classes and, school finally ended, I spoke with him briefly about, continuing on the path, and he is going to be a first-generation college student. So once we got started, I tried my best to get him to stay here in Tennessee, but he does not want to stay in Tennessee. So we do have him enrolled at Richmond Community College in Dallas, Texas. So that's where he will be attending, and we have all his paperwork and everything taken care of, and we sent transcripts a few weeks ago, so we're good to go, and he's ready to leave Tennessee.
Thank you very much. Casey.
Okay, it's kind of hard for me to narrow down. First, I am a huge lover of Signal Vine. It has been a lifeline, even honestly before COVID, but even more so once we were out March the 13th, and so much so that we are, as Monica is, contracting with our cohort to be able to communicate with them. So I'm super excited about that. And I've also been grateful for this year having access to be able to text and receive text from parents as well of our seniors, because a lot of times if our seniors, some of them are on top of it, and some of them parents are more so. So I've been really thankful for that. Great, effective communication tool, because the student will text way more than they will read an email. So Signal Vine has been a lifeline for me. And also, thanks to Gear Up, we were able to buy quite a few Chromebooks to be able to, with our larger senior class size, pump out the Tennessee Promise earlier and quicker, and FAFSA numbers, Tennessee Promise numbers. Each year they have continued to improve. So we're really grateful for that. And as far as the story, I have one student, she stands out to me this year. I will say this is my high school where I work, where I graduated. And so I did not have a college advisor when I was here, and I cannot tell you how grateful that I am that we do have that here at Henry County, and also the number of parents and students who, even if they're not in our cohort or our priority group, they'll say, I'm so glad that you're here, and I hope that you guys can stay forever, because it is so important. It's so needed. But one of my students, she is from a low-income family and has a heart of gold. But there is a little bit of dysfunction in the family as well. And she didn't go into great detail, but she did mention just some mental abuse that she felt was just really confusing for her. I did witness a little bit of some discomfort while they were here working on the FAFSA. The mom and dad were here helping or working on their part of the FAFSA. And she had her mind set on college, but also test scores, having hard conversations about income levels, and she does help support her family financially at home as well. So she was set on this school, and as I can imagine, she's wanting to go nursing, which is perfect for her. She's definitely a nurturer, a caretaker, and she came to me, or didn't come to me, over text and email. She reached out during the COVID break and just said, Ms. Matterson, I'm having a change of heart about my college, and I think it's time I be honest with myself. And she had changed from the school. It was a private school that she was looking at. And she said, because of Tennessee Promise, I want to go to school tuition free. She said, and I've got everything in order for that. I think it's the best move for my life. And she just said, she said some really kind things to me as far as just the support she feels at Henry County, the counseling office, the administration, through us at Gear Up. And she just said, I really feel like this is the right move for me. And I was a little concerned because it is closer to her home. So I wanted to make sure that she wasn't getting the pressure at home. But she said, no, I need to go to school tuition free to reduce the amount of debt. And she said, and honestly, it's just a better fit for me. And so she did reach out and say, is it okay if I keep talking to you. She said, because I feel safe. And she said, I haven't always felt safe. And so I share that just to say she's not the only one. And I know I'm not the only one that hears those things, that these students, I still have students coming back from 3 years ago when I worked here for Advise Tennessee. They're still checking in with me, still letting me know about their lives in college. And so these relationships, they're game changers for these students and for me.
Thank you, Casey. Shamika.
Well, I like the programming, of course, but the personal stories, connecting with the kids and
I can't hear you right now, Shamika.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So I have one student who had been in and out of foster care her entire high school career. She came to me like first semester and said, I'm okay, my sister's turning 21. I finally have a place to stay safely, and I won't have to worry about anything. Well, in the course of the year, of course, I was checking up on her, making sure she's okay, because she's graduating, but she was only 16. She was turning 17. Graduated early, of course, and she has stayed focused, because this is the same child that had come to me in her 10th grade year to say, I won't be here next semester. My mom has decided to put me back in foster care. But she fought through all of that, and she was able to make it to her senior year, and she always used my office or wherever I am as her safe space. So she came in and she told me that her sister was turning 21. She was going to be able to be her guardian, and everything was going to be okay. So we were okay, and she was doing her thing. And then she came to me one day, and I saw her, and she had her hood on, and of course you couldn't have hoodies on in school. And of course teachers sending her to the office, and I grab her, what's going on, and come to our space. And she comes in and she tells me that her and her sister got into it, and her sister called the police on her, put her out, so she didn't have anything. She had to just leave what she had. She didn't have her computer. She didn't have any clothes. So me and a couple of teachers got together and, found the things that we had in the building. But I actually physically went to Walmart to buy her some shoes and underwear and the things that she needed. And, of course, Gear Up is the snack place. So I had snacks for her to eat because she hadn't eaten and she got to school late. And just to help her through that process, finding her somewhere to stay, trying to keep her in the school she was in, Whites Creek, because she had built that network of people that could help her, and trying to keep her focused so that she could graduate. And with the resources that we had with Gear Up and the connections that we have with Oasis, we were able to keep her where she needed to be at high school. She graduated, and when we had that drive-through graduation, I don't think there was a dry from every teacher that she had ever dealt with, from the principals, because we were so excited that she found that foster home. They're going to let her stay until she was able to go off to college, because when she graduated, they were going to saying that she could no longer be in the foster program, but her situation was unique. But she was able to stay until she goes off to college. She finally graduated. We text every now and then, because, I don't give out my personal number, but for this child I did. We text every now and then to see and making sure she's okay and she's doing well. And that, just being with Gear Up and having that ability to have network connections, like with Oasis, or just having a space in the building that she was able to come to decompress, get the things she needed, or be able to tell me what she needs, so we're able to supply her what she needs. That's one of the success stories for this year. I have several, but that one sticks out the most.
Thank you, Shamika. Poppy.
Hold on. Hey, my story is both personal and programmatic. We were in 2.0, and so we have been spending money for a long time. And Dwayne was gracious in letting us spend money on our ROTC programs over the past years to be able to get the kids out and let them see, if you want to join the military or go to college, it might involve travel. You can see different things. So a few years ago, we visited Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio, and along the way, we stopped at Berea College. And in 2018, we had a student who attended Berea College. So a couple of years ago, he let us spend some money sending the kids to Charleston. They visited the Citadel. They went to the beach, and out of that ROTC group, this year we have a young lady who received an appointment to West Point. She is first generation college. She had a parent in jail while all this was going on. We were doing her West Point stuff. The other parent is not involved. Her brother is in the cohort, so they kind of moved into my room every night after they ran cross country, ran track, and we made a lot of dinners. Like Shamika said, there is always food at Gear Up, so it's cool. Also out of that group, we have a student going to the Citadel because of his experience that Gear Up provided is what got him interested. We have another graduate this year who is receiving a full 4-year scholarship in Air Force ROTC to the University of Tennessee that includes a $400 stipend each month. The cohort group also, because spending in ROTC has driven that program's interest, and then our leaders of the program have created such a great experience, we took our cohort to a competition this year. And they learned real quickly the difference in showing up to win and just showing up. So they are creating a T-shirt for Gear Up for this year, and the back of it will say "Show Up to Win," because they said, Ms. Merriman, if you show up with purpose, then it makes a difference. So out of this program, we just have kids going to great schools and doing great things. The program was recently named the #1 program in the state of Tennessee, and it's only 10 years old. So the power of Gear Up to create programs within your school that will continue to drive your success is absolutely amazing.
Thank you, Hoppy. Nicolette.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted.
Yes, you are.
Can you see me? My screen is just like all black.
I hear you just fine, but I do not see you.
Can you see me now? I see you now.
No, I do not.
What about now?
I just see your shadow. Now I see you.
Okay, I don't know what happened. So I am really proud of a student. This year was his first year out of high school. So last year, on year 2 of the grant, he was a senior. He had actually been at Copper Basin. We have 2 high schools. Copper Basin's very small. That's where Danielle is. He was, I guess, kind of in a, like a parental guardianship situation. So he decided to, he left where he was living, and he came to Polk County High School for his senior year. So he just kind of had a rough patch, and I had been warned about him, and I love that. I love when teachers tell me that I'm not going to be able to get a student to do anything for me. That's just more fuel to the fire. So one specific teacher said, you will never get him to do his FAFSA. He will never do it for you. Don't even waste your time. Well, guess who did their FAFSA? So I sat him down in the library one day. He just had that really just angry feeling. He was letting off super angry vibes, and he was like, who are you and why are you telling me what to do? So I got him by myself one day, and I said, Austin, I want you to do something for me. I want you to just consider listening to why I think you should fill this out. So I went on to tell him, why I thought he should do it. You don't have to go to college, but I believe that you can if you want to. And it's, October right now, and a lot of life can happen between October and May. And I'm just not going to be able to sleep at night if I know that you didn't do it and you could change your mind later. So I'm like, would you just consider that for me? And so finally he agreed. So we did his FAFSA. It was super easy. He got automatic Pell Grant, and then he was able to see really quickly, wait, I would get all this money to go to school? Yeah. So I was like, I'm not going to hound you about it, but it's there if we need it. So, but before that, so we did Tennessee Promise. He did the FAFSA. And we just continued having a good, building that relationship throughout the year. I would check on him, see how he was doing in classes. He finished a credit recovery. My office is in the library, and that's where they come in to work on credit recovery. So that worked out really well, just developing that relationship. And I don't know really what was happening, but I saw him like softening up over the course of a couple months. Well, during that time, Dr. Bell and Dr. Goodman had done a really good job of getting us out to visit some local businesses. And so we were able to work together with WIOA and actually get him a part-time job at Polymer Components, which is the plant in Polk County. So we were able to get him a paying job, and it's like the lights came on. He was like, I like this. I like working with my hands, but I also don't like making, I don't know if it was $8.50 an hour, whatever it was. He was like, I think I'd like to learn more and make more money. So then before you know it, he wants to go to TCAT, and he thinks he wants to do welding. So we stay in touch. He graduates, he starts TCAT, and he comes back to visit me this past year, and he says, Ms. Parker, I don't like welding, but I know what I want to do. So he stays in TCAT, he switches programs, and he's enrolled in the new program, come back and visits again, and he's like, I love it, I'm doing great. And then he's actually been able to stay in contact with me like during COVID and stuff. So that's a huge success story for us. I actually told him, I said, you're going to be a person I talk about for a really long time, and eventually I want you to come back. And he said, I would love that. I would love to talk to students like me who were angry and didn't want to have a plan. So I'm going to throw it on to Danielle now because she's got one too.
Yeah, mine is just really quick. So I have a senior that I'm still working with. So he's not a completed success story yet, but he's on his way. And I think just being able to get him to do the things that we got him to do so far is a success story in and of itself. But sort of a similar situation. I just had a senior this year, and he was just adamant that he wasn't doing anything. He hated school. He didn't want to think about anything after high school. And I'm lucky at Copper Basin that we have a senior seminar class, and our teachers, we have 2 teachers that really work closely and do a lot of the legwork and work with our seniors as far as FAFSA and Tennessee Promise and all that goes. And so they had sort of been dragging him along the way. And when FAFSA rolled around, he was just adamant that he wasn't doing it, that his mom wasn't going to do it, they weren't doing it. He wasn't going to do anything after high school. So they sent him to my office one day, and we just chatted, and I asked him a lot of questions about his quote-unquote plan he had. And I think he started to realize that his plan he hadn't thought his plan through very well. And so, long story short, we did get him to submit his FAFSA, which was a huge thing. But he was still adamant he wasn't doing anything. He just wanted to get out and get away from everyone that hounded him about all this all the time, in a loving way, of course. But so I talked to him once when we had our drive-through senior cap and gown pickup and all that in May. Talked to him again. And then about 2 weeks ago, he texted me through Signal Vine and said, okay, what do I need to do if I want to go to TCAT? And so I was like, yes. So at least he's thinking about it. We're still working on it. He's not easy to get into contact with just because when he's done talking, he's done, which is fine. So we got all the information, and I actually had texted him just yesterday and ask him how he was doing. So hopefully he's going to be a complete success story, but I think just having him think about his plans after high school was a success in and of itself because he was very adamant that he wasn't doing that. So.
Thank you, Danielle. Fayette County High School.
Okay. All right. So as far as Fayette Webb, my story is centered around a service we provide or provided, which was summer melt. And I got this idea from one of my Gear Up colleagues. So the counselor was hired to contact the class of 2020 graduates to see what their post-secondary plans are or were. And she asked them a series of questions that was listed on a handout. She also provided support for them, cleared up any confusion, provided clarity for them, and who to contact for what on college or in college. And this was helpful because, as we know, a lot of these students are first-generation college students, and you don't have anybody at home who can help assist them with this. So this worked very well because she would tell me about some of the issues and some of the questions that they had, and I was able to provide links to the students through the use of Sigmavine. And I mean, a lot of questions we got was, who do I contact for orientation? I still have questions about my FAFSA. And it was just very, very eye-opening because there were several students who just didn't know who to reach out to for these questions. Or we know students, sometimes maybe they just did not want to do the research to find the numbers on the school website of who to contact. So by me and the counselor working together, she would let me know the questions they had, and I would be able to copy and paste links in Sigmavine and share it with the students to use. So much so that I, along with a lot of the other sites, we're contracting to use Sigmavine with our cohort group this year as well. So that's going to be a good tool for us to use as well.
Thank you very much. Mandy. Do I have you muted? Mandy, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
How about that?
Okay. All right. I was happy that our FAFSA rate, our submission rate was so high this year. Our tutoring program seems to have really taken off this year. I think like 35% of our cohort group actually attended tutoring sessions. Probably would have been higher, but then COVID hit. You know, we use Sigmavine a lot, really able to kind of hook those seniors up with the college admissions reps, you know, that they have all those questions about. And I think the SMORE newsletter really helped towards the end because I could just kind of send that one link out and have little buttons on my SMORE newsletter. So then that way the kids could just kind of, you know, go to the SMORE newsletter, hit that button instead of having to send all those individual links out. And have done that, that kind of stuff. So I guess that's it. Mine's short and sweet.
Thank you, Mandy. And thank all of you so much. It's great to hear these personal stories, and thank you for sharing these with us and reminding us of why we do what we do. You all have heard me say this many times, especially in East Tennessee when I was a regional coordinator there, that as site coordinators, you invest so much into your schools and your communities and the lives of your students. And I realize it's not really something that you turn off when you go home. That is something that kind of lives with you nights and weekends, and you breathe it and eat it. And it's quite it's challenging in many, many ways, both personally and professionally. And so I think the truth is these stories represent why we do what we do. That we know that we make a difference, we make a significant difference. And the numbers are great in one sense, but there's nothing that replaces the relationship that we have with these students and sometimes their families as well. And we know that it's not just them going to colleges because of things that we've done, but the life that they will have from then on, the situations that their families will later have because of the impact that each of you made. So thank you for sharing that, and thank you again just for the work that you do. I have a couple of slides that I want to share, just kind of going through our implementation guide and some of the changes in sections 1 and 2, and then we'll be through with this first session. So let me see if I can forward this. So we have 8 sections in the implementation guide, including the forms section. So just in this first session this morning, I'm going to go through sections 1 and 2 really briefly. 1 will, I think, just take up 1 slide, and then I have 4 or 5 slides on section 2, but through the rest of our sessions during the kickoff, we'll go through some of these other sessions for different individuals. I didn't mention this before when we were doing the staff introductions, but I think just about everyone who spoke, even though they were pretty brief, they will have other opportunities to speak during the other sessions. The only exception, I think, to that was Troy, so he took up his time in the beginning, I guess. So first, just some implementation guide really goes through our staff at THEC and then the site coordinators and the project directors. One of the things that we did this year, we added the pictures of project directors too that someone recommended. So I hope that makes it nice when either they are talking to each other or our staff is talking to a project director, that you kind of can see what someone looks like when you're having that phone conversation or something. So real briefly, the statewide services coordinator position is a position that Mary Nell had. And just a long story short there, as you know, she was on maternity leave and chose to stay home after that. At the point that we had her job description typed up and approved and ready to post, that was when COVID-19 started and the state had a freeze on new hires. So long story short, we hope that we are going to be able to post that position very soon, because it is something, as you all know, that provides a lot of resources for you all as well as for other areas in Gear Up. We have one new site coordinator, Esther, welcome, and we are glad that you are here. She is the site coordinator for Jellicoe High School, replacing the position that Cherry Ann had previously. And then JP spoke before, so the only changes that we'll have with project directors is at Whites Creek High School, that JP and Dr. Mel will both jointly be serving as project directors at Whites Creek High School this year.
Hey, Dwayne, can I just key in there just real quick about the Statewide Services Coordinator?
Sure.
So to the best of our ability, we're trying to just aggregate those job duties across several members of our team. So things that we'll be talking about later, where Shantae and Kevin and Suzette have all stepped in. And so I know that that position was historically very vital to many of you in terms of if there's something that you needed that we could just turn around real quickly. We're going to still continue to do that as best we can. There is as Dwayne indicated, a hiring freeze that then prevents us from kind of moving forward with posting the position right now. And so we're having conversations about how to navigate that with some funding source related to the position and it being a grant deliverable. But please don't stop those requests coming. We will do everything we can to make sure that we're resourcing you as best we can while we're down that one person. So I just wanted to emphasize both like that's something we're working on, but also, don't, particularly in this time, because the resources you'll need are going to look differently than they have in the past. Keep those coming, and we'll do our best to make sure we're resourcing as best we can.
Thanks, Troy. And that will be a segue to a slide that I have that will be coming up in one or two. So thank you very much for sharing that. So section 2 in the implementation guide, again, as you all know, our required services chart is, I don't know, what is it, about 17 or 18 pages or something like that now. That is very detailed. I'm not going to take the time to go through all the required services. We really did that when we did the work plan webinar back in February. But there's just a couple of things that are significant changes that I just wanted to touch on. And most of these are things that actually we're going to talk about more in the next 2 sessions. Or they're things, there's a couple of them aren't necessarily changes, but just that I want to emphasize. So I'll just take a few minutes and go through that. The first one is pre-ACT. So we're going to offer the pre-ACT for sophomores this year. And the first speaker, so when we start the session this afternoon at 1 o'clock Central, the first speaker will be Donna Mason. So as you have questions about how the pre-ACT is going to work, when is it going to happen, how do I order materials, what is that going to look like about sending results, both individual and aggregate, back to THEC? What do I do once I have the results? We will go over that this afternoon, both kind of a combination of Donna Mason from ACT, as well as I know that Leanne and Shantae will probably be talking about that some as well, kind of from THEC side, what we expect and what we need to best be able to equip you for that. We're excited about the pre-ACT, not just about the practice test side of it, but what we're able to do with that data on the local level, both when you can see a great number of your students at your school, maybe they're challenged in certain areas, but also you'll have student level data where you can see with each student, and the student will be able to see areas that they need to focus on to raise their ACT scores in the future. Again, as I'm going through some of this, if you have questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask the question. If you want to wait to the end, we'll have a few minutes for questions and answers. Or if you want to just have a chat, feel free to send the chat. And if I don't catch it, then Kevin will, and we'll go back and answer anything like that. Troy mentioned a few minutes ago about Mary Nell's position and about resources. And I'm not going to go through all of these. I highlighted a couple of them that I was going to take a few minutes talking about, but that was just to talk about the ones I highlighted would take a little time. But we have tried to do exactly what Troy said, in that we want to make sure that we're providing a lot of resources from the state level so that each of you are not having to provide those resources at the school level for 2 reasons. One is we want you to invest your time with your students and with your families and their communities and the schools. The second thing is it just doesn't make sense that every single high school is having to create their own resource when we can do that at the state level, and we'll send it out. So an example would be the mentoring toolkit that I'm so excited about that we're going to have a webinar about next week. A couple more examples will be the welcome packets that Suzette has put together. She's going to talk about those tomorrow, that we're doing those. I think we've already sent them out, but she's going to talk about them a little bit more. We've done them on S'more, and she also put them in Word. Kevin has developed so one of the requirements is for you to train your teachers on developing college-going identities in those students. So with the college-going identities webinar, instead of each one of you having to create your own PowerPoint for your teachers, we're creating these resources. We'll send it out to you. We're trying to train you on the resources through webinars and things like that. And then you can go in and change it. You can make it your own. Same thing with like the faculty orientation to Gear Up. I know we sent those out. Maybe it has like 15 or 20 slides in it. And then what I would anticipate that each of you then would do, if there's some slides you want to edit and change, there's slides that you want to insert that are just about your school or your school system, please do that. The other thing that I would want to say about all these resources is exactly what Troy said. So as you're going through your required services and you're working on your maps and your cards each month and you're looking at your work plan, if there's something that we've missed, our goal in this has been for every single required service, if there's a resource or a toolkit or something that we can put together to provide everybody for that to help you solve that problem or that issue or that activity or service, we've done that. If you feel like there's a resource that you still need, let us know that. Again, so you're not just creating it for your school. Let us do it and then send it out to everyone. I hope that will help you spend your time in that way with your students, and it'll help us that we have consistency throughout the state with Gear Up Tennessee.
Well, and the beautiful opportunity there too, Dwayne, is that there are things that you are going to, particularly during this time, the problems that you're trying to solve, there are other schools across the state who are trying to solve those same problems. And so where there is like effective practice that we can then scale statewide, we want to most certainly do that. And so, you know, let's keep those lines of communication open, most certainly.
One of the things that several of you, when you introduced yourselves and you talked about things you're looking forward to this next year, I will just go ahead and say, so part of our agenda for both this afternoon and for the session in the morning is we're going to start talking about those either virtual services or services that we'll still have to meet our required services. I would tell you that the Department of Ed has made it very clear to us that their expectation this next year is that the coronavirus has been around for a couple of months. We know what we're expected to do, and we need to problem solve. We need to figure it out. We need to get the technology. We need to be prepared to still meet our required services of what they're paying us to do. At the same time, as you all said, we know that's going to look very different. So I think what you all put in your work plans, and that's the beauty of the map, that what we have to accomplish still looks the same, but how we do that is going to look very different. We're going to talk about that quite a bit this afternoon and tomorrow. The only other thing I wanted to mention that's on this list as far as resources, just because I don't think we've sent an email or anything out about this, is 21st century certificates. Again, this is a requirement that all of your students at some point receive these. So this would be your seniors that you haven't served in the past or any new cohort students that you have. Those will be going out. Troy is going to be mailing them out. He picked them up from the office just before our office was kind of shut down. So Troy's going to be mailing them out, and you should have them in the this week. Is that right, Troy? By the end of this week, they should arrive at the high school.
So I will commit to shipping them by the end of this week. You might arrive to your place the beginning of next week, but the Grant family will be counting those out during the evenings throughout the course of this week. And I will also say, while we were talking, and I know that we're going to be talking about this later, we are sending off to the printer the next guide, and the proofs were literally just delivered to my house. And so I will be perusing these just to make sure they look. This is the new 10th grade guide, yellow, and this is the senior guide. It won't be this thick, but it looks like this. So these are off to the printer. They literally just drove up to my house to deliver them. So we will approve these, and they will be shipped. We'll talk more about that later. So I know Suzette and Kevin and Mary Nell from afar, because she texts it and checks on it periodically, is very pleased that those are done. So we'll keep you posted on those things as well.
Thank you, Troy, and thank you for sending those out. Yes, so I think Kevin is going to be the one talking about the next guides tomorrow, kind of going through them just kind of quickly, table of contents and that sort of thing. But we're excited about having one for our sophomores this year for our cohort group. They will be shipped out to the locations that you all told us to send them to your schools and to whose attention and the number that you needed. So hopefully all that is still correct. If not, let us know before they ship. And the next slide is the next guide. I won't go into it really because, like I said, Kevin's got a section on it he's going to talk about tomorrow, but it is something that I'm excited about. We received just an overwhelming response for the senior guide last year, and we're excited to do that with sophomores. Our goal and our plan at this point is that you will have another one next year that will be for your cohort group on the juniors, and then they will have the senior guide the year after that. This is something that, besides the printed guide, we're also going to make it available online as a PDF. Which could be used by students if for some reason they don't actually have their printed guide. But what we're finding out is more and more students that are not Gear Up students, or they may not be Advise Tennessee students in other schools, or if your ninth graders wanted to use it or something like that, or teachers wanted to, they can certainly access the one online.
And Dwayne, just to kind of piggyback on something that you said too, if there is, and the majority of our schools I know are planning on being in some capacity, but I think, you know, if anything changes in the next couple of weeks before school starts, we need to know as soon as possible if there's, for some reason, someone will not be able to be at the school to pick those up. My sense is that even if a school goes into a hybrid kind of an environment or a virtual environment, there's still physically going to be someone at the building, but just know you don't want these delivered to your home because they're big and they're heavy. But if anything changes, let us know as soon as possible so we can make sure we take care of you.
And the next guides, the sophomore guides and the senior guides, may or may not ship and arrive to you at the same time. So don't freak out if you get one and not the other. You feel free to email us or text us and say what's up, and we'll check on it. But it's not necessarily a problem because you got one, you may get the other one a couple days later or something.
And we'll be able to get you the tracking number, so you'll be able to follow their progress as they make their way to you.
Next slide is, this is one of the required services, and it's a new required service, is about targeting seniors for college-going services. What we figured out, and you've already heard, a couple of you have addressed this. I think Leanne even mentioned this earlier when she introduced herself, Shantae, something we're going to talk about a lot this afternoon. But there's a group of students that we're just kind of missing. And this is not school-specific, it's across the state. And sometimes these are our students, and we've listed a couple of them here. These may be students that have kind of middle-range ACT scores. These may be students that are missing from school a lot. Sometimes it's CTE students. It's our typical low-income or first-generation students, and certainly not all of them. We have great CTE students. We have a lot of great students that have 17s and 18s on their ACT that you're helping them go on to college. But there's groups of students that can tremendously remove our college-going rates. We spend a lot of time on that kind of that top end of our students because they're the ones that have the highest grades and ACT scores and are always popping into our office and sending texts and signing up for everything. And we make a big difference in where they go and what they do and filling out the FAFSA and getting scholarships and everything. And we also have spend some time on those students that are at the bottom because we know that there's reasons that they're there and they haven't had the support that they needed, and we try to move them as well. But we feel like where we're going to make the greatest impact is kind of with those students in the middle. As I say that, I think back to many of the interviews that some of y'all participated in when you were applying to be a part of this grant. Several of the site coordinators, several of the project directors, CTE coordinators, the directors of schools really talked about those students that we talked about in the middle, where we feel like that they need something. One of the things that some of these students may need to, this particular service is for seniors, but we're wanting to do the same thing with our cohort group and focus on those students who need additional services, that there's a gap in college going with those students. And one of the things with the cohort group that we want to do is have a greater emphasis on mentoring and mentoring services. So that's why we've created that toolkit, and we're going to do that webinar. So I would ask that you keep these types of things in mind. Where can we spend our time and make the most significant difference? I believe this is the last slide. The last thing I wanted to mention is that the Gear Up model nationally is focused on the cohort for a couple of different reasons. And I won't go through everything on this slide, but these are the students where you're going to spend the most amount of your time over a period of several years, these same students. This is where you're going to build relationships. We believe this is where that's going to change the culture of the school. This is where you're going to create grant sustainability. Whereas the work that we do with seniors is focused on the student level. It's focused on the student and their family completing a FAFSA. It's focused on them completing a college application. Whereas our work with our cohort students is where we really hope that we will change the entire school and the school system and the community that's part of that model. As I say that, I want to just be very honest with you that sometimes it probably doesn't seem like that from the school's level, from the site's level, because a lot of the data that we send you about FAFSA completion, about Tennessee Promise, is related to seniors. And it's just because that's what's available. This is a year that we'll have pre-ACT data and that sort of thing. But I think sometimes from the school level, it seems like we are focused on the seniors because that's the data that we have, that's the emails that we send out, and Shantae works on those Tennessee Promise numbers and things like that. We don't necessarily have that same data when our students are in 8th grade and 9th grade and 10th grade. So I thought it was just really important that I kind of go back and remind all of us that our focus needs to be, when we looked at resources and time for services spent in Compass for the last year or two, often we've spent more time and money on our seniors, and it really needs to be the other way around. So I can tell you from the state level, it's something that we're going to start trying to check on more, that our services and our time and our resources are spent on a cohort group, and I would ask you to do the same thing as you're spending time and money at the school level, because again, that's where we feel like we're not just helping the student that we're working with, but we're going to be able to really change things in the system and hopefully in a very, very large and sustainable way. I'm almost on time, so we started about 10 minutes late. It's 11:03 now. I welcome any questions you have, and Kevin, if there's anything that I missed on the Q&A or the comments or the chat section, please let me know that as well. Also, Debbie or Elvin, if there's anything that you all want to chime in or thoughts that you had as we've gone through this morning as well, then please let us know. You're an awfully quiet group. Kevin, is there anything on the chat or anything on the quick Q&A section?
Dwayne, no, I'm looking through it. I think you're good to go.
Yeah. I've been monitoring it also, Dwayne, and there have been some questions, but nothing that you need to elaborate on.
Okay.
Well, I just want to say this, Dwayne, I just want to say this. I just think it was very powerful from a statewide service area and from us for a lot of coordinators to share some of those stories. I noticed that as busy as Mike has been all day, because I noticed he's been doing several different things, he kept popping back on to list some of those stories. And I think for a lot of us who are not in the field, especially a lot of staff at TEAC that don't get to go out to schools the sites every day and see the impactful things that are happening with a lot of the site coordinators and the students, I think it was very powerful for those stories. And I noticed that, and I could see the expression on Mike's face, and I don't want to speak for him, but I thought that was very meaningful for him to be able to hear some of those stories, and I appreciate those guys sharing those stories with us.
Thank you, Ellen, and thank you, Mike. Yes, I definitely appreciate that. Over all the past years that we've had kickoffs, personally, that's always been just one of my highlights of the kickoffs, to hear about the impact that we make, not just collectively, but the personal stories about one-on-one and those relationships and those kids and their lives that we've changed. With that, we'll stop this recording and we will end. The next session will start at 1 o'clock. It is also for project directors and site coordinators. Some of the staff that's on now will not be back at 1. Some of them will be back this afternoon. Thank you again for what you do and all the work that you've done. Thank you for taking your time this morning to be with us. Again, also thank you for your patience. We've continued to have some technical issues, being able to hear somebody and muting and unmuting and things like that. So I think that's probably representative of a lot of the way this next year may go, that we'll all just have to be kind of flexible and understanding and working with each other and everything. So I appreciate that. I miss you all, and I will see you online at 1 o'clock Central Time. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dwayne.